I literally couldn't have said it better myself. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about activist Bob Woodson. That's probably the best way to describe Mr. Woodson as an activist, a true activist, not one of these rabble rousers that want to go tear things up. A true activist really means good and wants to promote change, an author, an intellectual person. He was on Dr. Phil speaking about reparations, a very sensitive topic. Now, I'll give my opinion about this in a little bit, but first, let's hear what he has to say. He has a very interesting perspective that I think a lot of people may not have heard. And if you want to see this full exchange beyond this clip, I'll link to everything in the description box below. If you're on IG, visit a link in the bio and go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
If you dissect it, you will find there were about 3,700 free blacks who owned 12,000 slaves, black slaves. The question is, do the descendants of those free blacks who owned black slaves, do they pay?
Now, that's a good question. And pardon me, I got to stop it a little bit because it's Dr. Phil. I don't want to give me a copyright claim and take the video. But it's a good question. Who pays? Who pays? Who doesn't pay? Who gets paid? Where's the money come from? These are all great questions.
Blacks really benefited more the first 100 years after slavery than we have in the last 50 years.
Yes.
I was born in 1937 during the Depression. Everyone in my small, low-income black community, 98% of the households had a man and a woman raising children.
Now, let's pause right there. Some are going to say, well, it doesn't matter, ABL. They were in poverty. Well, define poverty, really. Define poverty. I mean, you might not have much money or many possessions, but would you rather have, okay, I got two different scenarios. Scenario A, you have a little bit more money and a tad bit more possessions. Apple iPhone, Xbox place, you got a few more possessions, but you have a more dangerous environment, a more dangerous community, more social issues, or less money, less things, less material possessions, but a more cohesive family unit, less strife, less crime, and overall better quality of life. Which one is better? You dead at 30 years old from gun violence and drugs and everything else, or you live to be 100 years old and have kids and grandkids and great-grandkids and a good life. Let's continue.
Elderly people could walk safely in that community without fear of being assaulted by their grandchildren. Never heard a gunfire during that time. Never heard of a child being shot to death in the crib.
See, this is what I'm talking about. A lot of these social issues we have now did not exist back then. There's a tad bit more money, but there's a whole lot more crime, a whole lot more hopelessness, a whole lot more social issues and decay. So which is the better thing to have? Okay, everybody wants the perfect situation. The streets to be paved with milk and honey and perfect social issues and no problems and just Shangri-La, right? Heaven on earth. We all want that, but be realistic.
But there are 50 children today who have been shot and killed in our cities. If you talk about remedies, we've got to look beyond saying that every solution has to have a winner and a loser, that blacks can only benefit if whites lose. We have to be defined more than just victims of oppression.
Very well said. And again, this full exchange will be in the description or on the website. Go to the link in the bio, link wherever, anthonyblogan.com. Go to the corresponding article on the website. But there's a lot that I want to address. First of all, what he said was right on point. First, it's reparations. I've said it a long time ago, and I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to say the same thing all the time. If it was going to be paid reparations, it should have happened right after slavery, like right at the end of slavery, 1865, because you were able to identify who the slave owner was and who the former slave was. Okay, you're able to identify both of those people, and then you can make a decision. Okay, 40 acres in the mule, land, money, whatever it is to get back on your feet. But now you're talking about almost 200 years later. I mean, who are you going to pay, first of all, and who pays? That's a question. most Black Americans, if you have roots that go back to slavery, are not 100% Black. You're talking about at best 80% Black. Even a guy like me, I'm obviously Black, but my 2 times great grandfather on my mom's side was a white dude, an Irish dude. Okay. Like they got Irish names and everything on that side of the family, like at a certain point. So, I mean, like my one time great grandfather, I knew him. He had an Irish first and last name. Like that's just what it was. So, I mean, does he count as far reparations? Now, and something else, a lot of the Irish were slaves too. So do they get paid? I mean, indentured servitude, whatever it is. I mean, if you right in the coal mine or the salt mine in Canal County, West Virginia, right next to each other, the Irish right here, the Blacks right there, what's the difference? Y'all still doing the same thing and getting treated the same, and it's the same situation. You can't really just leave. So what's the difference? I mean, and even beyond the idea of white slaves, how about Black slave owners? Do they get paid? If your great-great-grandfather was a Black slave owner, do you get paid reparations? Like, how does that really work? What if you are Barack Obama and your father is African and your mother is white and she owns slaves? Would he be paying out of his money? And then it goes to the whole thing about who pays. Is it taxpayer money? Because if it's taxpayer money, that means that we all pay. If some of us are exempt from the taxes, then that means some of us are not exempt, which means that they pay. Now, who determines who that is or who it isn't? If we're going to have certain corporations that benefited from slavery pay reparations, then again, we go back to square one. Who gets paid? Who doesn't get paid? How much African DNA must you have? Must you be able to trace yourself all the way back to the boat? A lot of us don't even know who our fathers are, let alone great-grandfathers are. So how are we going to go back all the way to the boat and trace ancestry that way? If you have an interruption in your lineage, let's say you have a Haitian grandma or something like that, do you get paid? Haitians were slaves as well. So does that not work over here? How about the African leaders and tribes over there that capture rival tribes of Africans and sold them to the Europeans for umbrellas and mirrors and spices and things like that during the slave trade? It wasn't called a slave kidnap. It was called a slave trade. A lot of these variables not really thought about too much. Usually when I hear the conversation, it's about, okay, we want to check from who, why, do you even deserve it? Are you even entitled to it? Who's going to pay? Who's not going to pay? If it's taxpayer money, that's your own money. How are you going to be exempt? There's all kinds of different things. There's so many variables that are unsolvable, which is why, as I close, whenever I see reparations get discussed, like in the open forum at a city council meeting, and they're talking about ridiculous things. Oh, $5 million, give everybody 2 or 4 horses and a bunch of land. When I hear things like that, I just kind of laugh because I know that it would never happen. They're just throwing things out there just to make empty promises that they never follow through on. They're not going to follow through. Same thing with Biden and the student loans. I knew that wasn't going to happen. He said, yeah, no more student loan debt. We'll pay it off. You can't even get 10 grand off of your 100 grand student loan bill. 200 grand, half of much you paying. You can't even get 10 grand off. I knew that from the beginning. It was an empty promise. Same thing, reparations. They'll tell you certain things they're going to do. They're not going to do it. They just dangle a carrot in front of you to get your vote year after year. And at a certain point, this game has become tired. But I'm glad guys are speaking out and giving some reality to the conversation rather than just having all these conversations be rooted in fantasy with no action or follow through. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? How do you feel about reparations? Should it be paid? Who's going to pay it? Can we get some answers to some of these obvious questions? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. If it was going to be paid, it should have been paid back then. Trying to pay it right now? I mean, it's just so many questions that are unanswerable. They're not going to be answered because the people that may have the power to make something like that happen have no incentive to actually do it. What's the purpose? I mean, it's not for votes because you're going to get 80-90% of the black vote regardless as a Democrat. So what's the purpose? There's no point. This is why, well, not the only reason, but things like this are the reason why you don't give one party your vote exclusively. Very simple. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.